Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. You are listening to a rebroadcast of a previously recorded show.
Author Holly Black of Doll Bones. Holly, thanks for coming by the studio. How are you?
For having me.
Enjoying my book fair so far?
Very much so.
It's interesting to kind of share things with other authors and learn more about what they do and stuff. I guess it's a great place to learn, isn't it, Holly?
It is. It's great. It's great to see everybody. It's great to see how many students have come out from different schools. It's just really exciting, energetic atmosphere.
Absolutely, Eric. And so far, we've learned a lot too, haven't we, Eric?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I've learned I didn't get a chance to read all these books before the interviews, and I learned there's a lot of books I'm going to read over the summer here coming up.
Well, if me interviewing 4 authors a week, I never will catch up. For Authors Corner, it's about getting to know these authors, and I think that's the way I try to interview authors, is really to just hear what their passion is, because what my listeners enjoy about it is, if they know who Holly is, the more they'll want to purchase Doll Bones. If Holly tells us all about Doll Bones, then why purchase the book? And that's how I look at it. I want to know what the passion behind you. And as an education network, what motivated you to write this? So I guess that's the first question, is what motivated you to write Doll Bones?
Well, there are a couple of things. One is it's kind of a ghost story, and I grew up totally believing in ghosts. My mom, she told me that our house was haunted. I grew up in this 100-year-old Victorian house down at the Jersey Shore before the Jersey Shore was famous for anything. And it had been my great-grandmother's house. And my mom said that when she was a kid, she used to play in the attic with the ghost, who she said his name was Robbie. And so whenever she lost her keys or anything, she would be like, "Robbie, where are my keys?" And then if they turned up, it was bad, because I guess the ghost gave them back, which was scary. And if they didn't turn up, it was also bad, because then I guess the ghost was mad at us, which was even more scary. So I grew up pretty much in a state of constant fear, but also completely believing in ghosts. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is that when my husband was younger, he and his friend would play Star Wars, and he had everything. He was super obsessed with Star Wars. And so he would bring all his stuff to his friend's house, and his friend would bring all his stuff to Theo's house. But his friend's dad and Theo's mom were dating for a while, and then they broke up. And when they broke up, all his Star Wars figures were at his friend's house, and his mom wouldn't let him go out back to get them. And so he lost all his Star Wars figures in one fell swoop, and he was devastated. It was the great tragedy of his life. So I've known my husband for a really long time, and so when he was about 40, his mom ran into the guy she used to date, and Theo was like, "Where are my toys? You get that guy to get me back my toys." But they were gone. Even then, he could not get them back. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is, Doll Bones is about 3 kids who they go on a road trip to bury a doll that may or may not be haunted. And so the third thing is just that, when I was growing up, I loved to make up stories with my friends. And it was really devastating to me when they started to be more into music and not want to play anymore. And so just really remembering that moment of when the game stopped was a really big part of the book.
What was the preparation like for this book? Like, did you have to watch a bunch of horror flicks, or did you just come purely from imagination?
Well, I'm actually terrified of many, many things, but one of the few things I'm not terrified about is dolls. I actually did ask my friends who are scared of dolls, what are you scared of exactly? And I went and read a bunch of different stories about haunted dolls. There's actually a lot of haunted dolls that, for whatever reason, are put in museums, which seems like a terrifying, terrible idea, but many haunted dolls in museums.
That is kind of traumatizing, I would think. I know clowns is usually a big one, like clown dolls. Usually most people are scared to death of those, but did you pull any of this, you think, from childhood stories, or was it strictly just pure imagination?
I think some of the ghost stuff was from childhood stories, and a lot of the game itself that the kids have made up was from childhood stories. And then, they're traveling. Was a lot based, I think, on my memories of what it was like to be that age, and when we would go off wandering and have adventures.
Very cool.
You always wind up putting your own stuff in there.
Yeah, it's always it's. I think it's very prevalent too. I think a lot of people will like the book just because that's kind of the in thing right now: ghost stories and objects that are haunted. And there's a big, I guess you could say, trend in movie industry as well.
I think everybody here remembers, right? You remember when you were a kid, and you remembered the game you played with your friends. Everybody had that.
Exactly.
Being your success of your other books, especially Spiderwick Chronicles and stuff like this, how are your fans going to like Doll Bones in that way, in the kind of similarities and differences also?
You never can know what your fans are going to think about, a new book or what your readers will like about it. One of the things is, Spiderwick is now a decade old. The first book came out in 2003. And so a lot of those readers are actually teenagers. And so, Doll Bones, is something that hopefully that they will like, but actually it's also, younger kids that are reading it. And people who read Spiderwick later, are more familiar with that, and then can go right into Doll Bones, which is a little earlier, which is, a little older. But for the most part, I think, it's a mix. It's a mix of new readers and old.
Very, very interesting. And Eric, are you familiar with the Spiderwick Chronicles, Eric?
I've heard of it. I've not read it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, I am. As a teacher, I am definitely, and I know some big fans. I'll have to really talk about some of my students I tutor and say, by the way, do you know who I had on the show? So I'm sure that your fans are excited to get to meet you here, right, Holly?
That's great. I mean, I'm glad that it's great to know that that kids are still reading them and still really loving them. It's been really fun to meet readers here who know the Spiderwick books, who saw the movie. It's just really fun.
Absolutely. So, Eric, when I was looking at the background, and again, like I was saying to Holly, I guess before I got on the line, I interviewed so many people. When I just read that, I said, whoa, and then I went ahead and followed you on Twitter, and I saw you have a pretty big following. I said, oh, my gosh, I can't believe who I have on the show. So it's so funny. I interview she's definitely a celebrity in certain ways as well, Eric. So when you have 15 authors today, Holly, and 15 tomorrow, and you're like, okay, we'll go with the talking points. We'll have a great conversation. We'll learn about things in Miami. Well, what do you love so much about Miami, coming to Miami? I guess sharing with your fans is one thing. Wouldn't you agree? And also sharing the new book.
Absolutely. That is, it's also really warm here, which is nice because I live in Massachusetts. So not to be denied. Super warm and nice here.
And so what has been the response so far to Doll Bones with your fans and stuff?
I think people have really enjoyed it. One of the most interesting things is I think that you bring to it a lot of how you already feel about dolls and whether or not they're terrifying. And so I've definitely had people who said it was so scary, they were so terrified, and other people are like, it was scary. But, they are not nearly as terrified because they're just not as afraid of dolls generally. And so I think that's been the thing that I could not have anticipated is how much people bring their own experiences and their own fears about ghosts and, specifically about haunted dolls to the book.
Absolutely. It's something where I think of the Chucky doll, Holly.
Yeah, and many mentions of Chucky.
and other dolls, and my one daughter would say, "That's a scary doll. I don't want it in my bedroom at this time." And I'm like, "Okay, honey." And then you look at these dolls sometimes, Eric, and you're like, "Oh, please don't let it stay in the room with me."
I know. Well, I think everybody. I joked about the clown doll. I had a clown doll when I was a kid that I was deathly afraid of, and when I was growing up, for some reason, that was prevalent in movies, like the old Poltergeist movie. They had that clown that would laugh and scared the you-know-what out of all the kids. Same thing. So, I mean, there could be other dolls, too, but I was terrified of clowns when I was a kid.
It's interesting. It's interesting how we are often, as kids, forced to live with things that we are frightened of. You're frightened of a clown doll, but, we don't think about getting rid of them. We think about, how do we live with it?
Yeah, exactly.
We don't think we can just get rid of this thing.
Hide it in the closet, turn its head around, do something, but we don't think to throw it away.
Yeah. Well, it could be mad if you throw it away. I mean, there's a whole, we live in the world in which, fear is, I think, way more acute. Where we really are worried about these things.
Definitely.
Definitely, and it's when we're worried about it and thinking about it, and the fear that we have, and in a lot of ways, the darkness of your writing. What would you say that is? And I guess in the creativity, kind of a mixture of a little bit of the fantasy world of a Harry Potter and different things like that. Where does that come from, growing up and stuff?
Well, I mean, I think in part, definitely, I really, I grew up absolutely believing in ghosts and hearing these stories, and I think that really hugely informed the kind of stuff I wanted to write about, but it's also just that I was a huge fantasy reader. I grew up reading Madeleine L'Engle and Lloyd Alexander and Tolkien, and, those were the books I loved most, and those are the books that resonated with me, and those are the kind of books I write.
Fantastic. Awesome conversation so far with Holly. What are you going to be participating in at the Miami Book Fair?
I have a panel today on young adult books, and I have a panel tomorrow on middle grade books where I'll be talking about doll bones.
So, jack of all trades, being here, checking all the different things out, Eric, and any other thoughts to ask Holly after I think you started to jump on some more research? She's really a famous author in so many ways with Spiderwick. I know that for a fact. So I know my daughter will be reading it when she's a little older, too.
Very cool.
Thank you very much. It's nice of you to say.
Yes. So where, Holly, can we find more information on you, purchase your book, and learn more about you?
You can go to my website, which is www.blackholly.com. So it's my name, but backwards.
Fantastic. And, yeah, I did follow you on Twitter. We can find you on Twitter at what? Where at on Twitter?
I'm Holly Black on Twitter. I was able to get my name right way around on Twitter, but unable to get my name right way around on my website. So it's wrong way around on my website, right way around on Twitter. And
do you have any other books coming up after Doll Bones you're writing right now?
Yeah, my newest book is a YA book called The Coldest Girl in Cold Town, which came out in September, and which is I'll be doing a panel about today with some other YA writers. And I have a new middle grade series starting next year that I'm co-writing with Cassandra Clare, and the first book is called The Iron Trial.
Well, I'm going to have to reach out to you so that during the year you can come back on my show, especially my education portion and Author's Corner and the international influence that it has, and so we can talk more about your latest books and some of your other projects. So I'll definitely reach out to your publisher and your publicist to see if we can get something hooked up before next year in Miami again. But it was a really interesting. It was great talking to you.
Great talking to you too.
Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own and shall not be construed in any way as advice from Life Improvement Radio. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our website. Personal perspectives expressed by the producers, writers, or editors will always be presented as such. Any rebroadcast or retransmission without the expressed written consent of Life Improvement Radio is strictly prohibited. Thanks for listening.